In 2013, Target implemented a $1.6 million malware detection tool developed by FireEye. Target had teams across the world ready to monitor network traffic. On November 30th, 2013, the team in Bangalore, India, received a notification of malicious activity. They forwarded this message on to the team in Minneapolis. The team in Minneapolis did not act upon this tool. On December 2nd, 2013, another alert reported was not acted upon. Finally, on December 13th, 2013, the U.S. Department of Justice notified Target that they had a potential breach. While Target had spent millions of dollars on technology, all it took was a breakdown in their processes to cost them over $200 million. Have you ever been in a situation where you did not know what to do? Did that situation involve a cybersecurity attack? This is a question that thousands of organizations and millions of people can answer. Fortunately, some very smart organizations have worked on this problem and have given us some advice. The advice comes in the form of having an incident response plan. As the old saying goes, if you fail to prepare, you are preparing to fail. As an organization, you want to have a plan and a process in place so that you are ready when an event occurs. An event is something observable that could have security implications. For example, a customer reports that they received a phishing email. An incident is an adverse event that will have some consequences on the organization. For example, the customer reports that they received a phishing email and that they clicked on that email and entered their credentials into the system. With a plan in place, you are more likely to succeed at handling incidents. Without a documented plan, you are more likely to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. An incident response plan is meant to be a living document that is designed to help you resolve incidents quickly and efficiently. The plan will describe your process for handling events and incidents. Before writing down what you are going to do in an incident, you first want to put a team together. You want to describe who is going to be on the team and what they're going to accomplish. One great way of unifying this team is to create a mission statement, to give them a common purpose. Something like one of the following. The goal of the incident response team is to quickly and effectively contain cyber threats while the business continues its normal business operations. Or, the mission of the incident response team is to provide rapid analysis and a resolution to security incidents that affect the confidentiality, integrity, and/or availability of the systems, services, and/or personnel of our organization. The incident response team supports the business operations of the organization through the rapid mitigation of all incidents adversely impacting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of its information infrastructure and assets. After a mission statement, identify roles, personnel, and contact information. It is critical that communication is as easy as possible during incidents. Having a list of who is responsible for what and how to contact them is vital for the communication of the team. Here are a few examples. There are some other roles that you might consider having on your team. An incident commander, who's going to be in charge? The operations lead, who's going to handle more of the in-depth details. A planning lead. A communications lead. Who are you going to communicate to? Or how are you going to tell your customers? How are you going to tell your investors? How are you going to tell the board? A logistics lead. People need to eat. People need to sleep. People need to go home, come back. A privacy lead. How are you going to make sure that your data is compromised or not compromised? And who needs to be notified when those things happen? A management liaison. Someone to work with the business in all of this incidents. And a few technical leads that you might need. Networking, sysadmin, security, cloud, forensics. You also might need to contact the legal department. You might need a legal lead. The US's National Institute for Standards and Technology came up with a 4-step process to incident response. 1, preparation. 2, detection and analysis. 3, containment, eradication, and recovery. And 4, a post-incident activity. SANS uses a more granular approach and identifies 6 different activities. Preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and lessons learned. Your incident response plan should cover these items in a basic fashion. In the preparation phase, you want to identify your people. Who are you going to reach out to first? Who's going to take command? You want to make sure you have policies in place, warning banners, monitoring. Do your employees know that you can be watching them? You want a response strategy. Are you going to take care of it internally, or are you going to bring in a third party? How are you going to get management sign off? You want to make sure someone is taking notes, or everyone is taking notes. How are you going to handle the note collection? How are you going to handle escalation procedures? How are you going to know when an event becomes an incident? What is that threshold? Are you going to bring in outside help? Do you want law enforcement to be involved? The next stage is identification. Where are you going to look for these events and these incidents? Are you going to have a security incident and event management system, or a SIM? Or are you going to have a security orchestration automation and response system, or a SOAR? What ports are you going to have open? Which ones are you going to monitor? SANS has some intrusion detection cheat sheets that are very useful. The next phase is containment. What you want to do here is stop the bleeding, close the network ports, stop the data from getting out. You also want to preserve as much evidence that you can for a couple reasons. One, you could use it for law enforcement so that they could go after the bad guys. Second, you want to use it to learn from. How did the bad guy get in? What are you going to do to stop him next time? This might have some subphases like short-term containment, making sure you have backups, getting some long-term containment set up, and making sure you get some eradication set up. Basically, you want to try to prevent the attacker from doing more damage than what's already been done. You also want to try to collect that untainted evidence. Sometimes you want to let the bad guy continue doing whatever they're doing so you can collect more evidence. In this case, you want to make sure you have lots of documentation explaining why you chose to do this, and getting sign-off from management explaining that this is what they actually want to do. Make sure you talk to your business unit during this stage. The next stage is eradication. You want to clean up everything. Restore from backup if you know they're clean. You want to re-image everything so you know the bad guy is completely out of there. Improve your defenses. Do a vulnerability analysis. The next thing is recovery. You want to restore the operations of your business unit. If you're selling t-shirts online, you want to make sure you can get back to selling those t-shirts. You want to apply security patches, reset passwords, basically get back to a running functional state. The last thing, and one of the most important things, is the lessons learned. A lot of companies want to skip over this because they've been working night and day trying to get rid of this bad guy. But the lessons learned are critical for preventing future break-ins of the same type. What kind of changes are you going to implement? Do you need to implement some new training? Do you need new tools? Do you need new processes? What can you learn from this incident? There's a saying that I like that says that a smart person will learn from their own mistakes, but a wise person will learn from the mistakes of others. You don't just need to do lessons learned on your own events, but also on the events of everyone else around you. Here are a few examples. Here are some other things that you want to think about for your plan. How are you going to practice? Are you going to have a war game, a simulation? You can send out a fake phishing email and see how your team responds, see how your employees respond. Your plan may also say how often you're going to do some of these simulations. Every 6 months, once a quarter. How are you going to handle customer responses? How are you going to update customers? What are you going to do with social media? How are you going to let your shareholders know? One thing to consider is that optically, it looks good to work with law enforcement. It gives confidence to your customers. How are you going to manage your incidents? What kind of processes are you going to use? Do you have a dashboard? Do you have a database of contacts? Do you have a database of incidents? What kind of thresholds are you going to implement to make sure that you don't fall victim like Target did? What are you going to do if your infrastructure is so compromised you can't use it to communicate with each other? How do you work collaboratively in an environment where your tools are suspect? Also, consider reading the Verizon Breach Report that comes out once a year. It's a great resource for knowing about the types of incidents that come out. Researchers are constantly looking for ways to improve the incident response plan. One of the things that Shedden, Ahmad, and Rugever, probably mispronounced those names, 2010 proposed is a double loop learning, where the organization doesn't just work on the technical details of the breach, but they also consider the root causes of the breach. What policies were in place? Were those policies ineffective? What kind of training do we have? What is the root cause of the incident? How did they get in the first place? Not just from a technical standpoint. Cultural, societal, policy, organizational. How did they get in? Ahmad, Hotchkiss, and Rugever, 2012, looked into 2 cases, and they concluded a formal process for disseminating incident knowledge is critical for long-term learning in the incident response process. They said that high-impact and low-impact incidents should be reported and learned from. Grispos, Glisson, and Storer recommended implementing agile principles into the incident response process. Werlinger et al. 2013 introduced this table. They only talk about the earlier stages, but they talk about some of the tasks that you need to be doing during these stages. Ahmad et al. 2018 discussed some of the disconnects between the Security Operations Center and the business units, and where you might have different failure points. Fleger 2017, probably mispronounced that name, identified some useful things for computer security incident response teams. They talked about increasing the social maturity of the teams and different ways to accomplish that. They talked about engaging in performance evaluations. They talked about selecting and training for decision-making skills. They also talked about selecting and training for communication skills. They talked about working on your team for information sharing. The more that your team can share information during this event, the better. All of this can be part of your plan. They said that working on collaborative problem solving together as a team is great for future events. They talked about cross-training so everyone knows what the skills are in other people. And they also said hire for creativity and curiosity. You want someone that's going to be a lifelong learner. Bartnes, Moe, and Haggard, probably mispronounced that, 2016, focused on 2 main skills: learning to learn and creating cross-functional teams. They indicated that these were 2 skills of highly functional teams. I hope that this gives you a good introduction of what it's like to create an incident response plan for your organization. I highly recommend that you do this sooner rather than later. You don't want to fall into the same trap that Target did. You want a good plan in place that you know will work when the time comes.